rubber meets the road, we stand tall. Through the grit and grind, we answer the call. Voices rising loud like a storm untamed. This is where the difference gets its name. Get in the truck, ride the wave of the sound. The 99%, we're breaking new ground. It costs nothing to be kind, that's the creed. Join the 99, fulfill the need. Get in the truck, ride the wave of the sound. The 99%, we're breaking new ground. It costs nothing to be kind, that's the creed. Join the 99, fulfill the need.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Sideshow with the 99% Radio Network. We are coming to you live from Barrel and Bones here in North Richland Hills, Texas. I want to introduce, we are doing a special broadcast today for Heroes in the Sky to honor our veterans and our first responders who have lost the battle to post-traumatic stress disorder. I want to welcome James Collins and Jeremy Bryant, President and Vice President of Heroes in the Sky. Welcome, guys. Hello. You know, I don't know what Tika is from statically as, you know, with this storm, there's going to be a couple of glitches in our audio and maybe in our video, so please try to bear with us. Texas Harley-Davidson closed its doors today because of the safety of their employees, but Barrel and Bones was so gracious enough, Tika was gracious enough to open up her doors here at Barrel and Bones to let us do this ceremony. James, tell us a little about the ceremony that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, so the ceremony that we're about to take part in is a battle vest dedication for 19 warriors, whether that be veterans, first responders, or public safety officials that have unfortunately lost their battle to suicide. And so the ceremony itself tends to serve two or three purposes. The main two purposes are awareness, because we're saying these warriors' names and we're not letting their memory, and we're not letting them die twice. And the second purpose it's going to serve is our education piece. So we travel nationwide in efforts just like this to educate populations on why we have this problem with suicide in our populations, and to kind of break down some of the trauma populations and some of the struggles that each of those face. And so just to bring awareness and prevention and education to our suicide epidemic, so we can, one, lower the suicide rates in the families, because what we've learned is once families lose a warrior to suicide, they become, their risk become elevated to also suffer the same fate. And so we try to use that for prevention and lower their rates as well. So yeah, this is a memorial vest that we are dedicating to Texas Harley-Davidson in Bedford. We're excited that it's going to be in their showroom, and we're excited.
You know, I'd be remiss to say the 99% Radio Network is so proud to be able to be part of this event. And it would not be possible if it wasn't for our sponsor, Glenn Lawson and the Biker Wolfpack, who really made this possible for the 99 to be able to donate this vest as well. You know, we adapt and overcome. You know, Mother Nature hasn't been the greatest for us this week, actually. But we did it. We have a great crowd out here. I don't know if you can see it on the other camera. We have a great crowd supporting our veterans and our first responders. And in the current climate that is going on across our nation, we have to back our veterans and our first responders. They need our support more than ever these days. So please, please, please make sure you support our veterans and our first responders. Hey, pass the mic.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome. At this time, I would like everyone to take a moment of silence to honor our beloved co-founder, D'Angelo Shaw, our hero in the sky. His presence is still felt by the very battle vest he wore. He was taken from us way too soon. May we lift up his children and his loved ones. Heroes in the Sky Foundation presents Battle Vest 2208, presented to Texas Harley-Davidson here in Bedford, Texas. We'd like to give a big thank you to John, aka Sideshow, Patricia Mayo, and the entire team at the 99% Radio Network for your support to make Battle Vest 2208 a reality. We'd also like to give a big thank you to Tika Allen, the general manager of Barrel and Bones, and the staff for hosting today's event. And also a big thank you to the ownership group at Texas Harley-Davidson here in Bedford, Texas, for housing Battle Vest 22 in the great state of Texas in their showroom. We'd also like to give a big thank you to all distinguished guests, friends, and families of our fallen warriors that are in attendance today. We have, representing Specialist Gabriel Ramirez, we have Ruth Pikowski and her daughter Gabby. Also, for representing Sergeant Brian Russell, we have John Salerno, and representing DoD civilian Tom Sokolowski, Patrick Bestie. Thank you.
Oh, okay. No, you're good. We also have Natalie Brett with us as well. I'm going to bring her on in a second. Bring her on. She is the widow of Daniel Brett, who was a U.S. Army veteran who also lost his life to mental health illness. Let me bring on Natalie now. Natalie, welcome to 99% Radio Network and Heroes in the Sky.
Hey guys.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. It stinks the weather was bad, so I couldn't make it in. I didn't want to take the chance.
That's okay. You're here via video, and that's all that matters. Can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Oh, okay. Well, just let all our listeners know briefly, because I know how hard this is, your story and Daniel's story.
Yeah, so my name is Natalie Brett. I am the widow of Daniel Brett. He served almost 10 years in the United States Army as a military police officer. I am also with an organization for veterans suicide called Green Star Families of America, and we help families of the fallen veterans. So Daniel and I met when we were 12 in junior high. We went to school together. We went through life. We ended up reconnecting in our 30s after he got back from his last deployment to Korea. And we met, fell in love, and got married, and everything was great. And he had some stress that he was dealing with, and went to work one day and never came home. So it's been a struggle, and why I'm being a big part of this and advocating for veterans' mental health and for the families in the aftermath, and hoping we can prevent some of this and help the families when it does happen.
Natalie, no one's ever truly prepared for the aftermath and the struggles that come along with it. And that's why it's so important that we have, we recognize the warning signs before they do happen. And between the Green Star Families and Heroes in the Sky, you guys are bringing education and, you're bringing forth things that we have never really touched on. Those
Right.
signs and symptoms of depression, those keywords those flag words that you have to look for in a loved one, in a spouse, and you have to address them. You can't just think that when someone says they're fine, they're fine. There are underlying issues. There are things you can do to help draw it out of them or recommend. So, if you can share with the families things that maybe you missed and not by any fault of your own, because, it happens. We never see those signs until it's too late. But were there any
Right.
things that you may have seen prior that now you look back and go, man, he was battling?
Yeah. About a week and a half before he passed, he came to me with those stressors of what he was dealing with work. I could see the anguish in his eyes and how defeated he felt. I did, as a wife, I felt I should have seen those signs right then and there, but I'm a fixer. I'm like, we can fix this. We're going to get through this. So we get through everything else that we've been through. And that's where I put a lot of blame and guilt on myself, just for the fact that I should have seen it and I didn't, because I was naive about it. But again, after he passed, looking back, he wasn't getting a lot of sleep. He wasn't working out. He was dealing with some slight medical issues that he was going to the doctor to see about. There was just a lot of the little things that added up to the day he died. But the big one is the sleep and the change of behaviors and the change of habits and the change of routine that I didn't see past the surface level. I didn't see deeper. And I wish as a spouse, I would have known more to what to look for.
Well, you can't blame yourself by no means. You can't hold that weight on your shoulder, and that's coming from, I'm sure James is going to feel the same way. You can't hold that weight on your shoulder for something that you were not knowledgeable of. And that's why what you're doing now means so much to the spouses and the families that are out there, because you are bringing education to them so that this does not happen to another hero of ours. I thank you so much for sharing that story. Once again, I know how hard it is.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, we'll keep you in our prayers. I want to thank you for what you do for the Green Star family and for Heroes in the Sky. We have a nice crowd out here that's probably doing the same thing, keeping you in your prayers. So
I appreciate it. It's always needed.
God bless, and we are here for you. Remember, we got your six.
Yeah, and thank all of you guys, James and Heroes of the Sky, and then John, you and the 99 Radio. Y'all have been such a big blessing to me and my support system when I haven't really had any. James is basically a big brother to me now at this point, and I come up to the station all the time with you guys and just to hang out if I need something to do or need a little extra support. So, I love you guys and I really appreciate y'all.
Well, we love you too, Natalie. You stay warm.
Yeah, y'all too. I'm in the warm house.
All right. Well, you have a blessed day. Take care.
You too.
All right. That was Natalie Brett. She's part of Green Star Families. When we talk about networking, I gotta give a big shout out to Tim Klund of the Celebrity Softball group out there that play at Frisco Field, because if not for him, to bring all these great charities together, the 99% Radio Network would have never met Natalie, would have never met James, or anybody from the Green Star or Heroes in Sky family. And that's what it's all about. It's getting out there and networking, because you don't know the people that you're going to meet and how far you can help other people. So, James?
Thank you so much. I just want to thank everybody for being here. We did have some weather conditions that we had to work around, and the people that did drive to be here, we're extremely grateful. Just helping us circulate this mission as well. We want to thank all the families. Jeremy's already thanked them, but want to thank them for being here. And just to start, Heroes in the Sky, we have three core pillars of why we do what we do. And it's just, one's honoring the fallen, and that's the awareness piece for the families. That's putting the names on the battle vest. That's saying their name so we don't lose them twice. And that's giving the families a chance to uplift these warrior stories even after they're not physically here. So we want to thank them for that. And then the second thing we do is we empower the families. So our families are fall in our prevention pillar, but the families are the ones left behind to carry the significant scars of a loss to suicide. We always say it. We say it very loudly that when we lose somebody to suicide, the demons do not go away. They transfer to the loved ones that are left to carry that legacy. And so with that path or that transfer of those demons, we have to put our efforts on the families, because what people don't realize is in our families is these families have a higher suicide rate than what you would think. You know, mothers, children, siblings, there's all different elevated risk for suicide once we lose a warrior to this. And then the last thing is really education. Just like this, you know, we get to travel, we get to promote, we get to raise awareness for these warriors, but we also get to educate people on what the layout of these communities look like and why we're having an issue with suicide in these populations. And so we really do appreciate these opportunities to spread awareness and maybe start making a difference in this plague. We're past an epidemic. It's a plague at this point. And so we're hoping that's going to help us make a difference. You know, another thing we've done this year is we've really tried to implement and start some very impactful programs that will help these families, that will come in and be a tool for healing, for camaraderie, for purpose, for identity, all those things that these families need to keep going to reduce their suicide rates. So one of those programs we're talking about is we have launched our podcast. We're going to start filming this week, next week. It's Breaking the Silence Together, the Aftermath of Suicide. And this podcast isn't your typical podcast, because this podcast is going to talk about the dark side of some of these relationships, the time leading up to the loss, what that really looks like. You know, because we paint, a lot of people, we paint these pictures that everything was perfect and people were so in love, or whatever relationship it may be. Sometimes there's a lot of trauma in those relationships, and traction, and leading intent, and it's just, just tense, right? And so we're going to highlight that. You know, we're going to come in, we're going to talk about what the relationships look like months, weeks leading up to that suicide loss. And then we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's going to ruffle people's feathers about the death certificate process, or, the autopsy reports or the coroner reports that the families have to go through. All those traumatic events that you're going to have to go through again. You've already lost the warrior once, but then you have to go through this second set of traumatic events dealing with the process of the death. And so that podcast is going to highlight what that looks like, and we're just going to show people the challenges and truths that these families deal with. And the second thing, that program is our Family Resiliency Postvention Outreach Program. And so we developed this program to be a resource for families, regardless of where they are in their grief journey. Maybe they lost the loved one to suicide, maybe an immediate onset, where they lost them a week ago, or it's fresh, right? But then what about those families that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the grief process? We know that grief doesn't go away. And so we have built a panel of suicide survivors that, if you go to our website, you can read their bios, and then no matter where you are, no matter if it's an immediate onset of a suicide loss or you 4 years in your journey, you can choose a panel member who to talk to. They'll contact you, and then they're going to be there for you. They'll be your mentor to go through this program, because they have physically dealt with the loss firsthand and they know what it feels like. So that panel is going to be there for anyone that reaches out for help. And so we're excited to launch that program to give these families more help and more support. And so it's a great time to try to get resources out to our families. And then, we look at, we start looking at why suicide exists, or why, our warriors unfortunately have chosen this path, right? And sometimes we just break it down. It's broken down into three or four key reasons, right? So that first reason that we typically see with connections to suicide losses is a thwarted belongingness, right? They just feel like they don't belong. They feel like they're, whatever purpose or whatever role they were feeling, they just feel like they don't belong here anymore. And then you have perceived burdensomeness, right? Where perceived burdensomeness is and the perceived is the key part here, because in their minds, in your mind, you feel like you are a burden to everyone around you, and so you come up with this myth in your head that everyone would be better off without you, and so that typically what a lot of times pushes people over the edge. I don't share my story a lot because I really don't like taking I want to put the glory, not the glory, but the awareness to these warriors, right? But I too have been in those shoes. I too have been 25 seconds from death with my hand on a pistol, on a backpack, about to pull it out and kill myself. I've been there. I know what this feels like. And so that perceived burdensomeness is real. Like it's just a heavy emotional feeling that a lot of times pushes these warriors over the edge. And then the last one is like an increased capability for suicide, right? You're around the weapon, you have, direct access to weapons, or if you're an EMS provider or work in that field, you're around prescription drugs or more lethal means. You're surrounded by those means and you have a greater access to them. And so typically those are the three we see when we go looking into some of the reasons why suicide's still happening. And then we, as an organization, like I said, we like to ruffle feathers, right? So we talk about the connection between the statistics we give and the statistics the VA gives. And people, and you could question that, like, why are you saying it's 44-day when the VA says 22, right? And so there's significant limitations in how the VA collects their data and how they categorize what a veteran actually is. And so that's the reasons there's some disparities in between the numbers that are being reported by legit studies and what the VA is pushing out. And so for the VA, it's hard for them to even identify what a veteran even is in their system. It's because in their system, the only way the VA considers you a veteran is if you had a minimum of 180 days of consecutive service, an honorable discharge, or federal service or active orders at the time of your death. So what does that tell you? That means we're excluding a lot of people. So no wonder the VA's rates are underreported, because they don't even know they can't even define what a veteran is when they're doing these studies for numbers. So what does that definition exclude, right? The VA excludes Army, National Guard, and reservists. They don't count them as veterans in their stats. The VA excludes service members with other than honorable discharges or dishonorable discharges. They don't even count them as a veteran. So we lose one of them to suicide, the VA's not even counting it. And then we actually, and so as a veteran, as a result of that, these veteran suicide rates are very off. So there is a disparity between what we report and what the VA reports, because like I said, they can't even define what a veteran really is, and they're excluding populations that they should be looking at. So this is the part where we go into the populations, trauma populations, right? Why each population carries different statistics. there's different struggles for each ones. Okay. So when we look at veterans on average, this is where we get the disparities. We lose 44 veterans a day to suicide. 20 to 24 of that is like a more lethal mortality means, weapons, poison, hanging. Another 20 is to overdoses, traffic crashes, and stuff like that. That these veterans, they didn't use a more lethal means, but they achieved their exit. Right? They achieved what they was trying to do. They put themselves in a traffic accident, the drug overdoses, and so that's why we're getting 44, and that's why we try to push the real numbers. And so, looking at our veterans too, we try to link those to combat service as well, right? And so, according to a lot of doctoral dissertations and PhDs, 18.5% of veterans returning from Afghanistan and Iraq will at some point develop post-traumatic stress disorder. And of those 18.5%, they're 9.8 times more likely to commit suicide. So our veterans experience a 57.3 greater risk for suicide versus the general population, meaning that career field, you carry almost a 57% greater risk just by being a veteran. And then it's also estimated that we lose around 1,080 veterans in officer-involved shootings with police officers, law enforcement, any of those. And then, so if we look at like the veteran branches, what the latest studies have shown is that the Coast Guard has now became the highest branch for suicides. So it's the Coast Guard, and then it's followed by the Marine Corps, then the Army, and the Navy and the Air Force. And then we look at female veterans, right? Because we can't, there's a different set of challenges for female veterans. Female veterans are 92 to 95% more likely to die by suicide than their female counterparts. 92 to 95%. But and then we look at that with where the women veterans, their suicide rate is 144% higher with suicide by gun or than the counterparts. And then we look at when you look at female veterans and their suicide rate, how can you overlook the military sexual assault that is constantly plaguing the female populations? And when we talk about sexual assault, we're not talking about just rape or sexual assault. We're talking about, what about behavior changes driven by fear or unwanted sexual acts? And I'm going to give you an example of this, right? How many of us are a veteran or have been deployed, and how many of us have been told that you have to have a female battle buddy, you go as pairs? Or if you're around, if you're a female and you're around a male, you always have a battle buddy there, or two males, or male, female, you always have a battle buddy there. Those are there in existence because it makes sure we're not putting male or female service members alone together without that battle buddy counterpart due to the behavioral changes that could happen. Not saying that it's going to happen, but that there's a possibility it could happen. So you have to have a battle buddy here, a battle buddy there. And so, a lot of times, it's military sexual assault. You're going to see the persistent fear of psychological harm, and then which that also contributes to long-term psychological impacts long after that female's taken that uniform off. And so the last thing I want to say about our veterans is that, so they say every suicide affects a minimum of 5 family members and 144 or 135 family, friends, battle buddies. So let's use the veteran rate alone. 44 veterans lost the day to suicide. Times the minimum of 5 family members, times the 135. So here's the staggering number. Every day, the veteran suicide alone will affect 29,700 people. That's a day. And then we have to look at our first responders, because our first responders carry high suicide rates as well. They carry higher rates of suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, and completed suicides due to the constant exposure to trauma. And then a lot of times, when we're looking at our first responders, we look at the problems that contribute to their suicide rate. 44% is relationship problems. 42% is mental health challenges. 29% is legal or administrative issues. 24% is workplace stress. And then 12% is financial strain. And so within our first responder ranks, we see some of our common risks for suicide, and that could be a history of suicidal thoughts, their previous attempts for suicide, and a lot of those, or there's a lot of alcohol and substance abuse involved as well. And it's important to note that many of our first responders have served in the military at some point. Now, I want to talk about the first responders. We broke down the veterans and explained the populations, but just bear with me for a little bit because we need to look at the first responders as well. We can't exclude those populations. Our firefighters carry a 72% greater risk for suicide than any career field. Firefighters have the highest suicide rates of any population, including veterans. Approximately 100 to 200 firefighters are lost every year to suicide. And then it's also estimated that approximately half of all firefighters have contemplated suicide at one point. Half of, whatever those numbers may be, but half is a lot. Firefighters also experience traumatic stress at higher rates. And that can weigh on them, as they go in day to day with the stress and the vital job that they do for our communities. Firefighters carry heavier sleep disorders, heavier depression, heavier substance abuse, heavier post-traumatic stress disorders, and heavier suicidal ideations and actions. And then we look at law enforcement. No one talks about law enforcement, right? Well, law enforcement carry a 54% greater risk for suicide than the general public. Do you know we lose a law enforcement officer every 17 hours to suicide? How many people knew that? They don't talk about it. It's taboo. You don't talk about it. You sweep it under the rug. Why is this, right? Well, a few factors. PTSD encounters with veterans heighten the emotional toll on our law enforcement officers. We just told you that, that around 1,080 veterans are involved in officer-involved shootings. So with that's a heavier trauma that those law enforcement have to carry. We lose almost 3 to 4 times as many officers to suicide than by vehicle accidents and felonious assault combined. We lose. So with our law enforcement officers, suicide is the 5th leading cause of death for retired or law enforcement officers or peace officers. And so we also have studies pointing that the smaller police departments carry the heaviest suicide rates, less support and whatever it may be, but the smaller police departments usually carry that rate. And then we get into the stigma of why law enforcement officers don't talk about their struggles. Why this problem exists, right? Well, it exists because did you know that an officer that dies by suicide is generally not buried with honor? They don't get the honor burials. You know that they are not permitted to be honored on the National Law Enforcement Memorial in D.C. They don't recognize them. And lastly, what we see in our law enforcement officers is the fear of adverse career consequences if you go to your chain of command and say you're having issues mentally. Because what are they going to do? They're going to pull your weapon from you. They're going to pull you off the street. They're going to take away the driving purpose that you wear the uniform for. Because we know you're not wearing that uniform as a lucrative job. Because we know they should get a raise, right? But you can't go to your chain of command because then they're going to take away everything from you. And so that's what we're dealing with. EMS personnel, same, 24% higher risk for suicide. They experience cumulative stress of witnessing physical and emotional pain on a daily basis. 37% of EMS providers have contemplated suicide at some point. And then EMTs, with their level of acute and chronic stress, with high rates of depression, it's linked to higher suicide rates. And then let's talk about correction officers. Correction officers are exposed to violence at significant rates. 85% of correction officers report seeing someone seriously injured or killed on their job. 85%. That violence does come with some repercussions. 50% of all officers in these studies report that they rarely feel safe at work. They have a higher incidence of digestive issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. And then the added psychological stress can lead to burnout, depression, suicidal ideation, and suicide attempts. So the risk of suicide is 39% higher for correction officers than any other field. And it's estimated that 1 in every 3 corrections officers report at least one symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, this is why we're here. The families, right? I said the families carry a higher suicide rate. We have families sitting in this audience. This is why Heroes in the Sky exist. A parent that's lost a child is 2 times more likely to die by the same fate. A widow that has lost a spouse is 3 times more likely to die by suicide after losing a warrior. Now let's talk about the children, because suicide affects everybody. It ripples through our communities. So kids with military parents that have lost somebody, that either lost somebody to suicide or just if they're a military child, carry heavier trauma exposure from military parents. That parent's combat trauma transfers to that child. We're dealing with a cultural resistance to mental health, because if it's a stigma for the military member to ask for mental help, how do you think the kids feel? Do you think those kids are going to feel comfortable asking for help? No, because it's frowned upon that the parent does. And then there's always an availability and general acceptance. Most military families carry firearms in the home. What about the constant moves? You bounce from post to post to post, right? That the multiple school changes. You go to one school, you get a certain set of friends, and then you leave, you get up and you're uprooted. So there's a lot of inconsistency in our military families. So in 2022 alone, we lost 146 family members. Of that, 93 were spouses and 53 were children or dependents. These families and children often experience complicated grief, stigma, guilt, shame, feelings of responsibility, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and an increased risk of psychiatric hospitalization. This is why we have to uplift the families, because these families are facing an uphill battle, and we need to be here for them. Now, thank you for sitting through that. Sometimes it's rough, but we need people to understand what's these suicide rates, why they're there, and why we need to keep pushing, right? I want to say this to all veterans, first responders, and emergency personnel. I don't care where you're listening from. I don't care if you're listening to me in this room, if you're listening to me on audio, listen to what I tell you. If you are contemplating suicide, understand your demons do not go away. They transfer to your loved ones, your spouse, your children, your mother, your father, your brother. They are left to deal with your emotional scars once you are gone. So I need you to stay. Fight one more day. If that day's crappy, then fight the next day. All right. So now we are going to present Battle Vest 22-08, and we're going to dedicate this battle vest to Micah Long, a representative of Texas Harley-Davidson right here in Bedford. In honor and remembrance, we recognize the service, sacrifice, and valor of the following warriors who have tragically lost their internal battles. May their names and memories forever rest upon Battle Vest 22-08, a lasting tribute to their courage and their dedication. Let this vest serve as a symbol of unity and safe place where our families can share their grief, their sadness, the love for these warriors. They can share camaraderie. They can share community support. So they are not forgotten. Their voices live on through us. We will now honor our Battle Vest 22-08 recipients, followed by a moment of reflection. So if you are a family member present, if you're representing a warrior, as I call that warrior's name, I'm going to kindly ask that you stand up and be recognized. Sergeant First Class John Todolina, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Mark Gulzion, United States Army. Sergeant Brian Russell, United States Army. Sergeant Chris Biggs, United States Army. Sergeant Daniel Brett, United States Army. Sergeant Jeremy Middlestat, United States Army. Sergeant Jimmy Thatcher, United States Army. Specialist Joshua Canawhite, United States Army. Specialist Gabriel Ramirez, United States Army. PFC Morgan Daly, United States Marine Corps. Private Brian Gonzalez, United States Army. Private Jesse Bartell, United States Army. District Attorney Shane Cannon. DoD Civilian Timothy Sokolowski. Rolette Police Department Officer Guy Helms. Rolette Police Department Officer Victoria Bailey. Garland Police Department Chris Carker. Senior Patrol Officer Michael Evans. Beaufort County Sheriff's Deputy Charlie Mataka. So, on behalf of Heroes in the Sky Foundation, we proudly present Battle Vest 2208 to Texas Harley Davidson.
Thank you. On behalf of Texas Harley Davidson, we would just want to say thank you for choosing us as a final, home, permanent home for this vest, and we look forward to giving it its proper respect. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. We want to thank the 99% Radio Network for sponsoring this dedication, making this possible. I want to close it out by saying we remember not how they passed, but how they lived. Their courage and sacrifice endures through us. Together we honor the fallen, we uplift their families, and we protect those still fighting. They are not forgotten. Okay. So before I close it out, we're going to bring up Gabriel Joseph. He is a veteran of the 82nd Airborne Division, and we're going to let him say a few words.
Yate, Keshe, and Wasterio means greetings in Navajo, Zuni Pueblo, and Lakota. She Honan in the Slingo Patane Basis Chin, said now Billy Dash Chain, Esdane, Dashnale. I'm the one who walks around one people clan, born for the folded arms people. My maternal grandparents are the Sleeping Rock people, and my paternal grandparents are the Zuni people. Amongst my Zuni people, I am of the Mudhead Kiva, and I am child of Eagle, as my father is Eagle Clan. Amongst my Lakota family up north, Rosebud, South Dakota, on Shishangu, Oyate. So I did 6.5 years active duty, U.S. Army. My first unit was with the Alpha Troop 1st 17th Cavalry, 82nd Airborne Division. My first deployment was to Bosnia-Herzegovina. My first 10 months in the Army was deployed. During that deployment, I lost it. My daughter passed away while I was deployed from neuroblastoma. I had the opportunity to get out. My unit offered me that. And I chose those brothers over getting out because I honestly did not feel like I had no home left here. And if being with them could get me through, and there was other people who needed us to be there at that time, I chose that life instead. I had a lot of anger, had a lot of angst. Brother, you mentioned part of your story as well. You know, years later, I would be the very first boots on the ground for after 9/11, and fought the first 10 months of Afghanistan. When I came home, I didn't really feel like I was back home anymore. A lot of my hurt and my pain started catching up to me. I'd lost quite a few close brothers during that 10 months. The loudness gets louder when the dark comes, And I actually went through the entire play out of literally pulling the trigger, but the round didn't go off. I put it away and again, curse God, like I had been doing since he had taken my daughter. And went back to work. And when Iraq came around, I was asked if I would go, and I said yes. And was involved from the onset of Iraq until May of 03, when in 1 week my career came to a halt after experiencing my first IED and being shot in the back while clearing a building. The year before in Afghanistan, I had survived a helicopter crash where we were shot down by Taliban members. I was in a Black Hawk with 6 other guys. Out of the 6, 3 of us made it out. And again, after Iraq, I came home, and best way I can explain it is, if you ever played sports or you were ever I had to take a seat out of something that you really loved, and told that you couldn't do anything else, while at the same time, the only family that you really knew was out there giving everything, and you're here, still alive. And again, I went through the entire motion, and again, the round didn't go off. Several weeks later, I would get in some serious trouble back home on my reservation where I'm from, and involving weapons, and I was handed a 10-year prison sentence. Feds. And through that, Texas welcomed me here with open arms. Later on down the road, I would, after getting out, I've been now free 10 years. Not been back in trouble. I haven't been back. I was explaining to my wife before coming here that one of the hardest things that I had to face, that I had to deal with while in there, was in front of the prison was the U.S. flag. I could see it every day I went to the recreation house. And it hurt so much that the same flag I defended and the same flag that my brothers were coming home in, week in, week out, I couldn't salute, because you're not allowed to while you're in there. And through that time, finding out that several of my brothers that I held close to, that I held dear to my heart, after multiple deployments, took their own lives. In 2019, we first lost our baby brother, Joshua Konowicki. He had done a year in Syria, came home, and we tried working with him. We tried everything that the books taught us how to do, the training. And he unfortunately was still struggling, and while still on active duty at Fort Stewart, he took his own life. 4 months later, in November 2019, John Tortolina, our oldest brother, 22.5 years of service, multiple deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. He also chose to take his own life. You mentioned a lot of the different ways that a person will contemplate and follow through in the ways that they live in this world. John made himself homeless. He didn't have to. He had a home, actually. He had my home. He had our sister's home. He had a home. Instead, he chose a field out in Gallup, New Mexico, and chose to freeze to death. After losing him, I started doubting myself as to what the hell I was doing, raising all this awareness, doing all these classes and prevention, working with fellow brothers and sisters, if I couldn't even save my own breath. But brothers like John Slalom here, his lovely wife, Tara, great brothers, sisters, they kept me in the fight. And made a promise to my brothers. Still do, and I carry them in my rock every day. There's still flags. But Brother John used to always tell us hula stuff, you know. And I know if I knew one thing about the both of them, with John and Josh, was that, you know, there's just too many of us who cry in silence, hurt and pain in silence. But at some point, somewhere, somehow, something's got to give. And that amongst the three of us, I had always been told and was always teased by them that I was always the hard-headed, the most hard-headed one. But yeah, now with my nonprofit organization, Recovery Ranger Corps, I wouldn't say so much I fight for the souls of our brothers and sisters struggling with alcohol or drug addiction, right? But rather I help my brothers make good friends with their demons by letting that demon know that you can't push me around no more. I'm not one to push around. And not just them, but their families too as well. You know, providing free mental health care, free treatment. And every chance I get, I walk for everyone. My brothers and my sisters who've taken their lives. Brother John here has always pointed out, along with others, that it's not the manner of which they left this world, but the manner of which they lived. They were all warriors, still warriors today in my book. It doesn't matter what Washington says or the bureaucrat says about the 180 days, or whether or not they were reservists or National Guard, the other ones who did all the work. If they won't honor them, then I will. If other people are so easy and willing to forget about them, well, I'm going to be that visual reminder of the hardship that we deal with. Hardship that your loved ones dealt with. There's a lot of things that I wish I could have done different in my life. Sometimes I think that was true. If that was the case, then maybe I wouldn't be the person standing in front of people today. Or spending last night out in the field out by the bridge where we walk with a couple of veterans who are more hard-headed than I am. Get to a warming shelter. Nah, brother, we're good, man. Just bring us some propane and all right, man. Well, you guys are gonna stay here to freeze. I'll be here with you. I remember part of my Ranger Creek. Never will I leave a fallen man behind. That's what keeps me moving one foot in front of the other. And I will not leave their families behind either. If no one can count on people up there in DC, I'm right here in DFW. I'm always around doing something somewhere with someone. So I want to thank you very much. I did 2.2 miles to honor you guys.
Thank you so much.
For everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was Gabriel Joseph with the 82nd Airborne Army Ranger. You know, Gabriel's story goes a lot deeper than what he shared today. But he did bring up one point, never leaving a fallen man behind and honoring the families and honoring those who have fallen. I want to thank all of you who came out here today and braved this weather to honor the families, to honor the heroes we lost. You could have easily stayed home in a warm house, cuddled up on a couch, watching TV, but you chose to be here for people, for a stranger. God bless you for doing that. That's humanity right there. That's what the world should see.
So at this time, I'm going to respectfully invite everyone in here to stand up. Whether you be a veteran, active duty, first responder, family member, does not matter. To those standing today and everybody watching on our video, I'm going to say this again because this is probably the most important thing. If you zoned out everything I've said, this is what you need to hear today. If you are struggling, please hear this. When you choose to take your life, you transfer those demons, the grief, the pain, the uncertainty, the why this, you transfer it to the loved ones that you were supposed to so claim to protect. Do not do it. There's too many people relying on you. Days are going to be rough. I've been there. I've been 25 seconds from putting a bullet in my head. I understand. But things got better. Your family will love you. Your family, if you're going through tough things, your family will work with you. That's what they love you for. Don't remove yourselves from their lives. Don't do this. And I just want to say thank y'all to everybody here. And we're going to close out with that. That concludes the ceremony. But I want everyone to see on the screen, everybody standing, and why we're here. Why I asked you to stand. So thank y'all for being here, and thank you for coming out in this weather. I can't say thank y'all enough for helping us circulate what we do. John and them for sponsoring this, getting us here, and there are works now where we're in discussions to do a second dedication later this year. What, in Austin? In Austin, so October-ish. So,
You know, James, this battle vest is going to sit proudly in Texas Harley-Davidson for all the names of our heroes that are fallen to sea. You have 8 of these battle vests across the country now.
we do.
And I welcome anybody in whatever state you're in to contact Heroes in the Sky and have one of these battle vests brought to your city, your state, and honor those who have fallen around you, the families that you know. And James, God bless Heroes in the Sky and your whole
Thank you
staff
so much
for providing this.
Right.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Once again, on behalf of the 9 AM 7 Radio Network, Glenn Lawson Moore and the Biker Wolfpack. Micah, Texas Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
God bless you and everybody that
Right.
gets to see this at your Harley shop.
So real quick, I want to say this very loud. I'm grateful for the people that make this happen. The people that come to these ceremonies, but most importantly, the families that trust us. I'm also going to call out my family that allows me to travel. My wife stays at home and takes care of the house, and I'm often gone. But she allows me to do this because she understands. The next person I'm going to think is in here today. And he doesn't like acknowledgement, but his name's Jeremy Bryant. He's our vice president. I could not do what we do without him, without his leadership, without him coming in my absence and making sure things are right, him looking after these families. I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
So that's it. Let's come up. If you want to take pictures with the vests, come up here. Whatever you need to do. We're up here to introduce, learn. Come on up.
All right. Once again, man, thank you to Chica and Barrel and Bones here in North Richland Hills. They support our veterans and our first responders. They had that grand opening. Come out here. Great food, great drink, great atmosphere. Support them because they came out today to support us and everybody in the community. So I want to thank Tika once again. This is 99% Radio Network. Pitbull couldn't be here today, but join us next week and every Wednesday. This Wednesday, we're going to have Miss Texas on our show, and it's going to be a great patriotic and community-based show. So join the 99 every Wednesday from 3 to 6. Peace. And we're out. I'll find my closing.
Right at an hour. Or a little hour and 8. Yeah.